Hello, welcome back to my channel. I just watched the new Wicked movie and I wanted to come on here and give you my thoughts whilst I get into drag today. So let's get started. So I went into seeing the Wicked movie already a big fan of Wicked. I have always loved The Wizard of Oz, especially the Wicked Witch of the West. She's always been one of my favourite villains. I actually read Wicked quite a few years ago now, and I've seen the musical now probably like 3 or 4 times. So I like to think I went into the film with quite a good understanding of the story and of the world.
I know it all!
But I was super excited for it to come out. I actually remember saying about 10 years ago to my flatmate that I thought it was never gonna happen. Like 10 years later almost, we're going together to see it.
We have been waiting so many years to meet you.
That was really cool. I have a lot to say about the movie and I really liked a lot of it. Just to see the magic and see her actually fly on the broomstick, it kind of felt like I'd been waiting forever for this film to come out.
For many years.
There's some huge differences between the book and the musical. I don't think anyone should go and read the book thinking that it's going to be the book of the musical, because it's not. The book by Gregory Maguire has a lot more of a dark undertone to it, and it shines a light on the character of the Wicked Witch of the West as she is in The Wizard of Oz, which I really found intriguing. She became wicked. In the book for Wicked, she actually does do some quite heinous acts. She has a streak of darkness and she kind of loses her sanity by the end of the book when she is killed by Dorothy.
Oh, what a world, what a world! Oh, God, a good little girl like you!
To me, that was always a really interesting read, to learn like the darkness of the character. She became it even though she had the best intentions. However, I think the musical takes a different role on that. It doesn't really portray Elphaba as wicked, it kind of portrays her as good. Like, she's the good witch and Glinda's almost the bad witch with no moral compass.
Only bad witches are ugly.
First of all, let's talk about the soundtrack. I actually stayed up until midnight, which is actually quite late for me these days. I'm basically an old lady. I stayed up to listen to its release with my flatmate as well, and it was a really lovely moment actually. I've been so excited for it to be released and waiting for it. I should be doing my makeup, I'm getting distracted with talking. And I was kind of sniffy, I guess, before I'd heard it. Not sniffy, but, you know, hesitant about the casting of Ariana Grande. I think she's very famous for being a pop star and for a certain type of character and a certain type of voice. And I guess I was worried that I was going to find it difficult to see her as Glinda and not as Ariana Grande, if that makes sense. But coming out of the theatre, I think I was eating my words. I think she played the role of Glinda perfectly. It was very light, it was very funny, it was very comedic. It also had emotional moments. I think vocally, she was so impressive. I really liked that she kept it to kind of like a musical theatre sound with her operatic twills and trills and whatever it is called, with her operatic sound. I think she sounded amazing. It opens up with "No One Wants the Wicked," and that was like a perfect example for her to show off her voice. From that moment on, I was engaged and absolutely loving the film. And then on to Cynthia Erivo, who is just so stellar. Where's my little sponge? There it is. I'll get you, my pretty. Like, Cynthia is just so epically talented. I think she has such a great voice, and I just love her attitude and her style, her fashion sense, and just everything about her. I think she's really an absolute star. She and Ariana both did brilliant jobs with the roles. I do have some thoughts though about the film. I think the film's quite desaturated. It's quite dull in terms of the colour scheme. I've seen a lot of people talking about this online as well. I know I'm not alone in saying this, but to me it just felt kind of grey all over. It felt desaturated. There were so many opportunities where it could have been super colourful and bright and really sold that like magical fantasy world feeling, but it wasn't. For example, when she's singing The Wizard and I, at the end she runs up to the edge of this cliff, and off the edge of the cliff is just this huge field of, like, I guess it's like white flowers or like white grass. It just seemed like a perfect opportunity for them to throw in like a crazy colourful field of flowers or foliage. And even the really colourful and amazing scenes that we did have, they still weren't very colourful, especially when compared to the colour that was in The Wizard of Oz, which is the same world that we're referencing and adding to here. I was actually doing this thing with some of the screen caps that I found online of the movie. Using the auto function, my iPhone's edit, all of the screen caps just looked so much better, so much more visible and colourful and lively. It all felt quite flat. Like the characters in the foreground, look, they're lit the same as the background, or even like backlit. There was maybe a couple of scenes that I think were nicely done with some nice colour. For example, Glinda in the corridor after she sings Popular, when it all turned quite pink. Deserves a chance to fly! One thing I did love was the costuming. I liked Elphaba's black dresses and her school uniforms that she wore. Story of Wicked has always had an element of darkness in there. And I think there was an element of darkness in there right at the start when we saw her hat in the puddle. It was all very moody and dark, which I enjoyed. But it kind of felt just like all light after that. And I wish that there'd been a little bit more of a darkness to it. Maybe in the styling. Maybe she didn't need to be so like cutesy preppy. And I think what brings some darkness to the show in the musical is the staging, like the stage design of it. So they have like the big metal dragon on top of the stage and almost like a steampunk aesthetic too, with cogs and whatnot. So I think that adds kind of a darkness to the aesthetic of the show that felt a little lost here. I also thought Shiz itself could have been a lot more colourful. Maybe there could have been like really colourful ceilings and really colourful roofs. But talking of magic, I really loved the special effects actually. I really loved all of the special effects in the film. I love that they used real sets instead of using all CGI. I mean, there's obviously some CGI. We've got talking goats. I also loved Glinda's friends in Shiz. I thought they were brilliant. Bowen Yang and Bronwyn James. I think they had great chemistry and the humour really worked. I've actually been a fan of Bronwyn's for a while because she's in Harlot, which is a brilliant TV show. If you haven't watched it, you should definitely go and watch that. I also loved seeing Keela Settle as well. I think that's how you say her name. From The Greatest Showman. I love her voice. I think she's great. I was kind of sad that she didn't get a song in this. Whereas Michelle Yeoh doesn't really feel like a singer to me. I mean, she's a brilliant actress. I love her work. I've been a fan of hers for a long time as well. But she just doesn't feel vocally as strong for the role. I like Madame Morrible. She's one of my favourite characters. I like her like evilness. But apart from that, I think Michelle Yeoh looked great in the film. I think she played the character really, really well. I loved her costuming. I think my favourite song from the film is probably The Wizard and I. I really like this rendition of The Wizard and I. My favourite song from the whole of Wicked is No Good Deed. It's like the darkest one, and I really like the moody, super big build up in it. Although I am a bit of a I'm not that girl kind of girl as well, every now and then. Oh, and if you hadn't guessed, I'm doing Glinda today. I actually really like the changes that they made. Changes to the notes and the riffs or whatever they call them. I'm really not a singer. And I think it's so impressive as well that they were singing on set like that. I've seen lots of videos of Cynthia Erivo doing her stunts, like strapped up in a harness, flying through the air while singing Defying Gravity. I think that is absolutely epic. And in terms of songs, we can talk about her Defying Gravity as well. I think it's a really awesome version. And it was one of my favourite moments of the movie for sure. Her like flying into the sky with her giant cape that was like extending in the air and the broomstick. That was a big deal for me because in the musical, she kind of like just stands on a platform that like raises up and it's kind of covered by her big cloak. And I've always thought that was a bit like of a cop-out. I want to see her flying on the broomstick in the musical. I mean, Mary Poppins flies across the audience in her show. Why can't Elphaba fly off on the broomstick? It makes no sense to me. It's always been a disappointment, so it's really fun to see her cape blowing in the wind, furrowed brow on her face, screaming those lyrics. My inner child was absolutely dying for that. I really like Jonathan Bailey. I think he's super, super hot. He's like, wow. And I've loved him in lots of things, and I actually did really enjoy him in this. I think he did a killer job with this, but I think he looked too old for the role. Like, I know that everyone's older in this cast than they should be for the role of being like school age, college age, whatever it is, in terms of like relation with Glinda and Elphaba. He's a brilliant dancer. He's got a great voice. He sounded great. I think he was a great pick for the role. I just kind of wish they'd like made him look a little younger because I think he looked like a teacher or like one of the students' dads rather than like another student. There was like one thing that stood out to me in the Wicked movie more than I've ever thought about the story before though. I guess I've considered it a little bit, but my hot take is that Glinda is an awful person. When Glinda and Elphaba are together with the wizard and they find out that the wizard is basically powerless and an evil dictator, Glinda chooses not to stand by Elphaba, her best friend. Instead, decides to side with Miss Morrible and the wizard. It's always seemed like an odd choice to me if Elphaba's her best friend and if she has a moral compass of any sort and understands the situation, which it seems like she does. The lyrics even say, you can have all you ever wanted. And it's like, how can you still want it? I mean, if I was Elphaba, I'd be like kicking off at Glinda at this point. Like, how can she not want to join her friend to do morally the right thing? To me, it just screams that Glinda's an awful person. But a likeable awful person. In comparison to the book, which is a lot more nuanced and the characters are a lot more questionable, I think that brings into the idea of like what is evil and how is evil and darkness and wickedness brought into the world and where does it come from. And I think that the portrayal of it through the movie and the musical, it's a very black and white portrayal of evil. It's a very pantomime portrayal, which makes sense. I mean, we're talking about the theatre, we're talking about like mass audiences and it being a family show. I can't see the Elphaba that we know from Wicked ever becoming the Wicked Witch of the West that we know from The Wizard of Oz. And that always kind of rubs me up the wrong way. Whereas in the book, we can really see her acting that way and becoming this villainous person because of what she's been through, which I always really, really liked about the story. I thought the choreography was so good in the film. I really loved their dance moves, especially the choreography with the books in Shiz and all the extra world building. I thought that was really cool. Especially seeing her when she was a child, like the young Elphaba, she was so cute. And I think there were so many times that it felt really fairy tale and magical, but I still think it could have been more colourful overall. I think definitely the standout was Cynthia. Her voice is just so amazing. I think maybe the film was a little too long, and that's not coming from me. Like, I would watch 3-4 hours of a one-part Wicked movie because I am obviously a Wicked stan. Like, the length of it felt a little bit like fan service. Just focus whilst I do these thick, chunky, slug eyebrows. One of my favourite scenes was definitely the Ozdust ballroom scene, where Glinda realises that she's being totally awful, feels guilty, so dances with Elphaba. Elphaba cries, and I'd never seen it like that before that scene. I'd always thought it was much less emotional than that, but it made a lot of sense for there to be so much emotion in that scene. I also really loved the way that they did What Is This Feeling? Whenever I've seen that number on stage, I thought it was all happening in like one short period of time, like over the course of the song. Seeing it in the film and kind of seeing the way that they spread it out, like over the course of a couple of weeks or whatever, of them getting to know each other and being in each other's room and like playing pranks on each other. I really liked that. It really built the dynamic between them. Did exactly what I wanted it to do in terms of like giving us more of a time scale. I also really liked the monkey scenes and the scenes in the castle where they were like chasing her down the corridor. And Glinda's still running after her, like begging her to change her mind. It's like, girl, can you not see that they've sent their like flying monkeys to kill me? So yeah, I think I have some opinions on the Wicked film, but overall, it was honestly such an amazing movie. And I think as far as musical movies go, it's definitely one of the good ones. But honestly, I quite like most musical movies. Like, I could even talk about Cats for a while. I think Cats has been very poorly treated by the world. But I know that I'm in the minority with that opinion, so... Okay, let me finish this look and I'll give you my final thoughts. Hello, my pretties! Here's the final look. I tried to keep it super classic and clean and simple. It's just a recreation of Margaret Hamilton's Wicked Witch of the West from the original Wizard of Oz. No jewellery, no lashes, nothing like that. So here we are, a very clean and easy look today to celebrate the release of Wicked. It ticked so many of my boxes and I really, really loved watching it. I had such a fabulous time in the cinema. So if you haven't watched it yet, then I've just spoiled everything for you. But if you haven't, then you should definitely go and watch it because it was 100% worth the trip. All the products that I used in this video will be linked in the description down below. And there's also a link to my shop down there where I feature my hand-painted custom clothing. And I also feature some t-shirts and printed merchandise. So check it out if you want to support my brand and look hauntingly fabulous doing it. Let me know in the comments your favourite song from the movie soundtrack and what you thought of the film if you've been to see it yet. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe on this video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you very soon. Stay freaky, stay fabulous, and remember, it's always better to be a bad witch. You cursed brat! Look what you've done! I'm melting, melting. Oh, what a world, what a world.